young little American children who grow up here to be raised by parents from the old country, wherever that is. They have different rules and regulations. So this is my mom's. She came to America in the 1970s from Aleppo, Syria. She packed just 3 things: her religion, her culture, and her hope that she could raise her half-breed American sons with both. And everything was fine until elementary school, when boys and girls were forced to coexist, and sometimes those little girls had the nerve to call my home. You see, back then, I was convinced by my mother that French kissing a girl was like dialing Satan with your tongue. So I never did. But when girls called my house, my mother always managed to pick up the phone first, and she would put me through hell by asking, "Do you know my son is not supposed to talk to girls?" Of course they didn't know. Even I didn't know why. Except that my mom didn't understand America yet, and I hated her until she did. I can still hear my mother in her 4-foot, that's the problem, in her 4-foot olive frame and Arabic accent embarrass me as she yells, "Never call here again. My son does not want to talk to girls." By this time, I'm cowering under the dining room table, anticipating tomorrow's blacktop gossip about a gay boy named Sam. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Pretending that the phone never rang, that my mother could not possibly be explaining the difference between virgins and sluts to a young girl who probably just wanted the math homework. And then she shouts for me, wanting a reasonable explanation for why girls had my number. I wanted to tell her, "Mom, it could have been my fuzzy brown hair, my deliciously chubby cheeks, my 10-year-old impulse to write my phone number down on the sweet scented notes of 5th grade girls who had a friend who had a friend who liked me." But I was only able to hear my mom lecture me about silly religion and temptation and how kissing spread disease and French kissing would send you straight to hell. But I was too young to care, and God was too complicated. All I knew was that this morning, when the sun was a tetherball in the sky's blue playground, Amy Lancaster passed me a note. "Do you like me? Yes, no, or maybe." And I circled yes, and pledged allegiance to an American girl with blonde curls, and sealed the deal with an after-school kiss that did not conjure the devil. But if heaven felt anything like that moment, then I was ready to die for my sin. Okay. Stage 1. Okay. Stage 2. We'll see. Oh, sorry. This is for the recording. So I grew up with a Korean War veteran father and a Muslim mother who became American. Growing up was challenging because of that bicultural stuff, right? And so I found myself spending a hell of a lot of time outside playing sports, doing sporty things. And this is the beginning of the imbalance of my life, because I just consumed myself with football. And it wasn't until, 20, 30 years later, and by the way, I know you're looking at me like, "Football, really, dude? Come on." But it was a team, and I joined it, right? There was no one, my dad wasn't around for very long, and so he wasn't able to say, "Hey, dude, why don't you try soccer?" Like, "How about jockey? Let me get you a horse. We can make this happen, kid," right? And so but you know what? Coaches became the father figures in my life, right? Teams became like my brothers, and that whole family thing was huge. I knew I was hiding from something. And it wasn't until, I remember telling this story in my TED Talk, but it wasn't until my brother got beat up pretty bad by some punks that I was paralyzed. He got sucker punched and beat up, and I started crying. I froze and I just started crying. And then everybody, and it was good in a way because everybody turned their attention to me. And they go, "What the you crying about? Ain't nobody hit you?" And what was I supposed to say? "I'm crying because you punched my brother and that makes me sad." But that's how it felt, man. I felt like they were punching me and I didn't have the strength, the courage. I had nothing to fight back with. But I did go home and I started working out. And that led to eventually playing football and continuing to work out and continuing to work out and continuing to work out. I brought a poem. I can't read. Is Scott here? Is there a boy named Scott here by any chance? Scott? Okay. This is a soul-crushing poem that I think I'm going to skip. This is not a soul-crushing poem. I was going to read a poem about my dad, but I think it hurts too much still. He passed away a year ago, and it doesn't feel right reading poems about him anymore now that he's passed, you know what I mean? Anyway. So let me read this one about my brother, because this explains who my brother was. We were totally different. He was the smart one, I was the sporty one. So sadly, what my mom did is she sort of separated us like that. Like she created this dichotomy. Okay, I got my sporty one, that's Sam. I got my smart one, that's my brother Ahmed, right? He had the Arabic name, more Arabic looks, my mother's firstborn, so he's a little bit more privileged in that way. And every time she introduced me, she'd say, "This is my sporty one, this is my smart one," right? And I think, I'm sure now, indirectly, that's why I pursued education, you know, right? Is this like a realization I'm having right now? Woo! You're seeing this shit in real time. It's like, that makes sense. You get your junior college, AA, you transfer, you get your BA, you transfer, you get your MA. Like at some point you go, am I smart enough yet? Am I smart enough yet? My brother who I love, he finished his AA and he got a nursing degree. Very smart, but he didn't get his graduate degree, so I feel proud of that. But my brother was always able to my brother was always able to read my mom and please my mom, and I was always one trying to run out of the house and get away from it all. So this is called Growing Up in Someone Else's Shoes, and that's the title of my little book here, if you're interested. And it means growing up in thrift store clothes, because when my dad left, times were tough. They were tough when he was there, when he was gone, whatever. Growing up in someone else's shoes, the brown and blue plaid shirt with the tight yellow collar I could stand. I even tolerated wearing the tight-fitting checkered shorts with the elastic waistband that clawed into my stomach, and while girls swung with parachuting skirts and boys grass-stained new jeans, my mother begged my brother and me to hold hands under an evergreen, just for a moment, just for one picture, then she'd never ask us again. I kept my hands in my pocket, fidgeted with a Pez dispenser. My brother reached for me, palm up and eager to help my mother, whose thrift store taste in clothes was good enough that other kids never asked where we shopped. He tugged at my shirt. "Come on, Sam, hurry up." I took my hands out, thrust them down my sides as if I were tucking away 6-shooters. I didn't smile. I didn't hold hands. I squinted, curled my bottom lip, put on a Wild West face. I was a cowboy in secondhand clothes. My mother took the shot. That's it. I'm gonna read this poem. How many people got teased, name called growing up, bullied? Yeah, great, good. You'll like this poem more. But that stuff haunts you forever, man. So I want to make some comments about that after I read this poem. But this is the kind of adversity I had. Besides poverty, my brother, I almost blame him because my name was Sam. I could hide my identity, man. Like a lot of people, and I apologize if I sound insulting to any brothers in the room, but a lot of Mohammeds become Mo, right? A lot of people change their name and they anglicize their name, right? Like Partip becomes like Patrick, right? We do these things because we don't want to be made fun of, right? What's your name? Jesus, what's up, Jesus? And so my brother wasn't able to hide. He was not able to hide. And by association, I wasn't able to hide either. People found out who I was. Even my stupid football coach. I remember vividly in high school, this was like, but things have changed, right? People are more PC. That's for some people good, for some people bad. I'm sort of, I go both ways. But this teacher in today's environment would probably have been fired. This was the Iraq War, like early 90s, right? And I was Middle Eastern. My stepfather was Iraqi. He would throw the ball, the football, and I'd run my route, and he would yell, "Here comes a Scud missile." Some of you don't know what Scud missiles are, but those were the really crappy missiles that Iraq had, and they were launching them into Kuwait, and America was pushing back, and this and that. And he would say, "Here comes a Scud missile," and he called me Saddam, right? And I was a kid, so I'm just like happy to be acknowledged, right? Like I had an identity, but that shit's racist. Nowadays, that'd be all over the Twitter, man. So I missed that boat. So we get called a lot of names. So I want to read this poem and then make a point about empathy and pain. Sticks and stones. If you've ever believed that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you, then you never met my mother. You were never called a baby when you were 8, 9, 10 years old and still sucking your thumb because it soothed you when your parents fought, when dinner plates were being smashed against walls and zipping past you like glass frisbees, shattering against apartment walls that your drunk father patched with chewing gum and broken promises. You were never in 7th grade, sitting alone on the duct-taped seats of a yellow school bus when a blonde girl named Courtney called you pizza face because puberty had spread its greasy hands all over your forehead, leaving a rash of pimples, leaving you seated by yourself against a window where you prayed to the wind and the sun to heal you before the first bell rang. You never met Eddie in high school, who found out that you were half Arab, then called you sand nigger, camel jockey, asked if you rode a magic carpet to school. Those days you wish you knew one trick, how to disappear. You think now that you might have preferred sticks, even branches or stones the size of El Capitan, if it only meant broken bones that heal and get stronger. But it's the words, always the words, tunneling under your rib cage, between your lungs, digging into your heart, where sadness is unearthed like a diamond that you didn't even know was still there. Thank you. So I have this new belief, and I'm going to share it with you, and I didn't invent it because I'm not a doctor, but I have a lot of chronic pain in my lower back, in my elbows, and it comes from, at least I thought it came from injuries. I've had MRIs, I've got disc bulges, I got all this stuff, right? And I'm listening to this doctor, Sarno, I think it's Sarno, and his premise is this: the chronic pain that we have in our back in particular is not real pain at all. There's nothing structurally wrong with you. And again, this is, you don't have to buy this. I am in this world now. I'm bought it hook, line, and sinker. He says that's not physical pain. That is repressed anger. That is emotional trauma. And you have not moved through it yet. It is lingering and sitting in your heart, in your back, in your body. And I thought, that's crazy. I've had an MRI. I know I have a disc bulge, and I know I've got sciatic this and a hip that, and right? I've gone to chiropractor, and you know what? Nothing's helped. Like literally nothing's helped. I've done all the chiropractor, all the PT. What helps is being physically fit, like trying to get in shape. This doctor said, you gotta get your core strong, right? How many doctors say that, right? You have back pain because your core is weak. And I said, dude, my core's pretty strong. He was a young doctor, 30-ish. And he goes, can you L-sit? I said, what's an L-sit? And that's when you sit and you bring your legs up and your back up, right? And so you're just in this like V shape and you're balancing on your rectum. Make sense? I did that shit right in his office. I said, I can L-sit. I'm doing this. And he's like, you can't L-sit. So what's your next diagnosis? Well, we might start thinking of cortisone shots, Sam. We get a cortisone shot and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. So then I'm listening to this book on tape about healing back pain, and this guy says that pain is the chronic pain. If you get in a car wreck, like that ain't emotional trauma. Like, that's the car wreck. But my back has hurt for a decade with no relief. But now, in the last 2-3 months, I joke with my wife, I'm like, babe, have you heard me complaining about my back lately? She goes, no, but every time you ask me if I've heard about you complaining about my back, I feel that's you complaining about your back. Indirect. See how she knows? She's always a step ahead of me. That's why I don't cheat. She's 10 steps ahead, dude. There are other reasons, love, loyalty. So the pain, think about that for a moment. Think about the pain that you feel in your body as not structural pain, but repressed anger and emotion. We go through school, we go through college. I had a student, I was telling my wife the other day, because she met me she didn't meet me at the gym. She was at the gym, we happened to meet, she goes, I think I know it. I said, hey, she said, I was in your poetry class. I said, great. I saw her 2 days later, she goes, you know what, I was too embarrassed to say it, but I'm gonna say it now. Your poetry class changed my life. I said, what do you mean? She said, I went in that class, I had so much depression and anxiety, and I was suicidal, and I was cutting. And she said, I was able to write that stuff down, write that pain, share that pain, and I was healed by the end of the semester. And she said, I thank you so much. I still journal today. I still write today. So if you learn nothing else from me, you don't have to be a writer, but you have got to lean into your pain. I don't think we move past pain. I think we move through pain, right? Does that make sense? You can't move past it. Oh, it's fine. It was a long time. It was all bullshit. It's still there. And we just scratch the surface and it erupts. And you've got to cry. You've got to cry, and you've got to talk through it. You've got to find people who can help you through it. Otherwise, you'll be in pain for the rest of your life. And if you're worried about judgment and other people's opinions, let me give you this quote. Opinions and judgments of you only matter if you believe them. Right? Our counselor, my wife and I had a counselor, he said, other people's opinions of you are none of your business. Right? If you take that away, I'll be happy. People's opinions and people's judgments only matter if you believe them. If they say you're a loser and you believe you're a loser, that's gonna hurt. But if people say to me, you're a jerk, you're an idiot, you're unkind, you're an a-hole, I'm like Wonder Woman, ping, ping, ping. Because I know I'm not. I've got a good track record of being nice to people. You know, maybe in the moment, something happened, transpired, and you were mad at me, but boy, I don't believe what you're saying about me right now. There's no way. All right. Go ahead and click past this. Oh, my brother. This is us in our sucker men. Anybody have a sucker man? Those little things. So that's my brother, a little bit more contemporary. I'm bald there. I had my head shaved for years to save money. And now between haircuts and pomade, man, here's $100 a month you're looking at. No, I'm just kidding. And those are all the kids up there. Go ahead and switch. One more time. Oh, this is where you all go, oh. So I'm not suggesting that you should all go out and get married. But what I am suggesting is you should work really hard, or maybe not hard at all. You guys just swipe these days, man. It's a whole different game out there. We had to talk to people, super awkward. Hey, hi, what's your name? That builds character, man. You all just ugh. It's so much harder when that is in front of you and you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe. Let me give you my number. Fake number. You've got a fake Instagram just for them. I mean, there are ways it makes it so much easier. Not me, man. You had to talk to girls, be in all those uncomfortable, rooms with those girls and not know what to say, yada, yada. Then I found my wife on campus. I'm going to read a poem about that. But she's Indian. That's her, dressed up all fancy. That's me putting a ring on her. That's us 15 years later, and I'm not sure what that beach pose is. But we do like each other a lot. We get along, but we're totally different, right? Right? Yeah. Come up here, girl. No. Come up here, girl. Tell them how different. No, I'm just kidding. She ain't coming up. The last thing on earth she would do is come up here. That's not because she can't and not because she's not wonderful, but that's how different we are. She's like, you go do your thing. Just go. I could go out every night of the week and be fine. She goes out one night, she needs a week to recover. She gets exhausted from the small talk and being on. And some people are like that, right? They're introverted. They can turn it on and then they need to re-energize. There's a jar of energy, right? There's an invisible jar of energy on everybody's nightstand and it just gets depleted. It just completely depleted after a day or whatever, right? Then you need a lot of rest and recovery. My wife needs 2-3 months. Food slipped under the door. You ready now? Not yet! Okay, another month. It's like the groundhog comes out. 6 more. She's like, see, she wants me to stop. She knows we're going on too long. Point is, we're different. We're very different. Not just culturally, but if it weren't for her, I would not have the awareness I have. I would have continued to overdo that joke, but she's like, right? Like, she helps me with that. So I married her when I was 25. And when I was a young boy of 22, 23, I wanted to be married. Is that crazy? Y'all don't want to be married. Y'all millennials, you on average are getting married closer to 30 than 20, right? You guys have an extended 10-year period of your life. There's a name for it. It's called adultolescence. It's not adolescence, it's adultolescence. You have given yourself 10 extra years of childhood to party, to hang out, to swipe left, to swipe right, to drink, to have fun, right? You gave yourself a decade. Good for you. Good for you. Nobody gave that to you. You took that. Right? Not me, man. I wanted to get married. So this is a poem. It's called A Letter to Millennials about marriage from a 43-year-old man. I apologize to Ashley. You've heard this about 1,000 times. So look, I'm not judging you. All I'm saying is that life was different for me. Maybe it's because I grew up with Stevie Wonder's I Just Called to Say I Love You. And you grew up with Akon Smack That. Trying to kick it like Tybo and smack that all on the floor. That just wasn't me. In fact, my greatest fear in life was to someday become that guy who blows out 50 candles on his birthday and still dances the Running Man at Crocodile's nightclub in dress slacks, chest hair exposed like a chia pet on Rogaine, gold chains slithering through the brush like snakes through grass. Oh, hell no. I'd rather be home with my wife on a sunken sofa dotted with flesh. I'd rather be home with my wife on a sunken sofa dotted with freshly baked cookie crumbs, a DVD spinning Elmo, while our son